The sponsor for this episode of The Stand is Vibe Media. In today's legal world, reputation isn't built by word of mouth alone. It's built by presence. Your firm's story deserves to be seen, heard, and remembered. At Vibe Media, we help law firms modernize their image with powerful video, photography, and branded storytelling. No more stock photos or templated websites. We create authentic visuals that capture your team's integrity, expertise, and human side. Because clients don't just hire lawyers, they hire people they trust. From attorney profiles and brand films to recruitment videos and event coverage, we bring strategy and creativity together to showcase what makes your firm different. If your firm is ready to stand out in a crowded market, it's time to tell your story with intention. Visit thenewvibe.com and let's bring your vision to life with Vibe Media.
Hello again, everyone. It's Alan Wilson from GLJ Benefit Consultants, and welcome to another episode of The Stand, where we talk about expert solutions to modern law firm issues. I got it right, and everyone's happy. So here we go. We have been waiting for this episode all year. I'm so happy to welcome the Queen Lemonhead herself, Debbie Foster from Affinity Consulting. Debbie, welcome.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
And I'm so happy that I got that intro right, so Rich wouldn't be mad at me.
It was a good call to get it right.
Debbie, I'm so happy to see you. Everyone is so excited for this particular episode, and tell us a little bit about what Affinity Consulting has been doing recently.
Well, we've been here, there, and everywhere. We're very excited about all the events we've been to and all the upcoming events. But what we do here is we help law firms solve their technology and their strategy problems. So how do they think about getting their work done differently? And how do they think about how the modern law firm is run? And the answer to that is more like a business than a law firm. And so we're super excited to work with our clients on helping them think about what they need to do to build a sustainable law firm for the future with all the changes that are coming our way from a technology perspective and an industry perspective.
And they come so fast today. It's just incredible. Well, you and I talked beforehand, and one of the burning issues inside of law firms today is succession planning. And I'm so glad that we are going to talk about this, because you and I both are so passionate about this particular subject. So I'm glad that we're going to be able to tackle it. So let's talk a little bit about it, and let's define what the issue is. Talk to me about succession planning and what seems to be the biggest issue inside of law firms.
Yeah. So I think that if I were to summarize, the biggest issue is that we just don't talk about it like we should. I regularly get calls from firms who say, we really need some help with succession planning. And I say, great, tell me a little bit about what's going on. And they say, well, we have 3 lawyers. They're in their 70s. They don't really know what they're going to do. We really don't know how to deal with them. We haven't really talked about any of this. And my answer is always, that's actually not succession planning. That's damage control. Succession planning is what you do for people who are starting to think about what will happen to their practice when they're no longer managing it. And that should really happen when people are in their 50s or maybe their early 60s at the latest. And Alan, I think back to, you and I, like you said at the beginning, we have been passionate about this topic for a really long time. And back in the day when we started talking to groups about succession planning together, one of the things that we noticed that people were not paying attention to is that whole, we need to think about succession planning, but also, what if the ceiling tile falls out of the ceiling and hits me on the head and I can't come to work tomorrow?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And there's this element of surprise that comes to a managing partner or partner committees that, oh, well, yeah, what if the unexpected does happen?
Mhm.
There's I'm not sure we've planned for that. We're thinking about maybe doing some succession planning, but boy, what if it happens tomorrow? And we have seen that, and we have so many stories behind, firms that, guess what? You didn't do any planning and it did happen the next day.
Yeah.
And it's that, boy, that's sad to see when everyone starts scrambling and saying, okay, now what are we going to do? So why do you think it's so hard
Mm.
to, and it seems like it's hard. Why do you think it's so hard for firms to say, hey, let's tackle this?
Well, I think it's hard because it's a vulnerable conversation, right? And I have been in lots of rooms with law firm equity partners to tackle this. And I've said, what if we just put like a timeline up on the wall and everybody just walks up there and kind of like puts an X? You're not making any commitments. We're not signing any documents, but you just like put an X where you think you might start to slow down, right? And that gives people hives. Like they start going, I don't know if I'm ready for that. It is a vulnerable conversation. It is also a challenge when who you are is so connected to what you do. Right. And that's just like a human condition issue. That's not a lawyer issue. That's an issue for me. Like I love what I do and I'm very connected to what I do. And it's a big part of who I am. And if I'm not doing this, what am I doing? And I think that's really challenging for a lot of law firms, a lot of lawyers to think about. Maybe I don't want to be an equity partner anymore, but I want people to know that I'm committed to still being a lawyer. Or maybe I want to be here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but I want to kind of have a little bit more of a lifestyle practice. And I don't know if my firm, if they would be okay with that, and they're afraid to bring things like that up. You think about big rainmakers who feel the weight of the business that they bring to the firm. And if I were to start to wind down, what would that look like and who will replace me? And it's why I think it's just so critical that we try to figure out how to have these conversations sooner.
And I think and we'll certainly get to that when we start talking about the solution, but it's understanding the makeup of your firm. It's understanding the demographic of your firm and understanding the goals and objectives of non-equity partners, associates. Where do they want to really end up being? I remember that, we have that mutual story where we went into a firm together, and one of the first things that we talked to the managing partner about was, who do you think wants to be, next in line? And there was an answer that came to us that was, well, I can tell you who it's not going to be. It's this person. And, because that person doesn't participate in anything the firm does, and absolutely is an amazing lawyer, but has no interest in being an equity partner. Then we went, okay, great. So we took notes, and then you and I interviewed that person first. And we actually went in one of the first questions we asked was, what are your goals and objectives? And the first thing out of that, you remember that? The first thing out of that lawyer's mouth was, I just really want to be an equity partner.
Right.
But both you and I were like, okay, great. Well, what's holding you back? I have no pathway.
Yeah.
No one's talked to me about it. I found that very, very, we both, I remember we did the recap that night, and the managing partner just was blank stare of, what?
You're kidding me. Yeah.
You're kidding me.
Well,
Yeah.
and what's changed, I mean, that was, gosh, that had to be 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
something that's really changed is when I talk to associate attorneys now or non-equity partners now, they're really not all that interested in becoming equity partners like they once were. It used to be a law firm's going to hire a lawyer. You're going to hope they're a lifer. You're going to hope that they get on this unknown, undescribed, undefined path to become an equity partner. And you just can't wait for the day that somebody's like, hey, you get to have a seat at this table. Right. And
Right.
that's so common in so many firms. But now, we'll have conversations with associates and I say, tell me about your hopes and dreams for the future. And they're like, this. I love what I'm doing. I love being a lawyer.
Yeah.
I just want to practice. I'm, any desire to kind of travel the equity partner path. And for a lot of different reasons, we hear them say things like, that's not what I want my life to look like. Right. I had someone not too long ago. I was having the same conversation. It was a male lawyer at the time. I was having this conversation and I said, do you have any desire to travel that path? He was like 7 or 8 years in. And he said, no, I definitely don't. And here's why. My wife and I are about to have kids. I never want to say to someone, yeah, it was pretty tough for me to get to soccer games while my kids were growing up. I want to say I didn't miss them. And I feel like the path to enter into that equity partner world isn't flexible enough for the things that I want to be able to do with my family. And that flexibility, it didn't exist in so many firms 20 years ago. And many equity partners wear that I work 80 hours a week as a badge of honor. And it's not attractive to younger people who are coming in. So it's even more important for us to start having these succession conversations because we need to be able to identify the next generation of leaders and what that's going to look like at our firms.
And it can look so many different, there's so many different looks for that. But if the conversation doesn't begin or you're not talking about it, and the other thing is that even if you define it by talking about it, it can change.
For sure. And this is actually something that you taught me. And I use it regularly, but it was something that just recently happened. I was doing some
This
strategic
isn't a
planning.
song, is it?
No,
Okay.
no, it's not a song. But I was doing some strategic planning for a firm and succession planning was one of the topics. And part of that conversation, because everything is connected. Succession planning is connected to strategy. Strategy is connected to growth. Growth is connected to compensation. Like it's all connected, right? So we were talking about this and it kind of led us down how do we retain our future leaders? And one of the things I said was one of the greatest gifts that you can give your young lawyers is access to financial planning. And I learned that from you. And I say that to people all the time. And I get like older lawyers who look at me and they're like, what? Access to financial planning? And I'm like, yeah, that's what they need. They need to be thinking about that when they are young lawyers, because the other succession planning problem that we have is many of these older lawyers haven't adequately prepared for retirement. So they're working not because they want to continue to work 60 or 70, 80 hours a week, but they have become accustomed to a lifestyle that they cannot maintain if they don't keep pushing that hard. So what is the greatest thing that we can do is give that gift to our young lawyers and say, what does that look like for you? And then you're investing in your people. You're investing in your future leaders, even if they don't want to be equity partners. There's also this kind of like weird assumption that the only leaders in our law firms will ever be equity partners. And if you look at any other business, some law firms too, but any other business, you don't have to be an owner to be a leader. You can be a wildly impactful leader and not have equity partner as your title.
Yeah, well, that's just so well said. So, I think that we have identified the problem, right? So let's talk about. Let's state an issue, and you tell me if this is it.
Okay.
Law firms today have a fear of talking about succession planning.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean,
So
yeah.
I think that's where we go with that. That's the issue. We're going to talk about the solutions right when we come back. So everyone stick around. We'll be back with the solution right after this.
In today's legal world, reputation isn't built by word of mouth alone. It's built by presence. Your firm's story deserves to be seen, heard, and remembered. At Vibe Media, we help law firms modernize their image with powerful video, photography, and branded storytelling. No more stock photos or templated websites. We create authentic visuals that capture your team's integrity, expertise, and human side. Because clients don't just hire lawyers, they hire people they trust. From attorney profiles and brand films to recruitment videos and event coverage, we bring strategy and creativity together to showcase what makes your firm different. If your firm is ready to stand out in a crowded market, it's time to tell your story with intention. Visit thenewvibe.com and let's bring your vision to life with Vibe Media.
Okay, welcome back, everyone, to The Stand. And we have, who are you? What's her name?
It kind of says it on the screen if anybody's
okay. Yeah.
Watching. Yeah.
Okay, so we're back. It's Alan Wilson from GLJ Benefit Consultants, and we're back with The Stand. And our guest this week is Debbie Foster from Affinity Consulting Group. We're talking about succession planning. And we believe that we have identified a solid issue, and that is that law firms have a fear of talking about it or having a fear of where to start. So let's get into the solution, Debbie. There seems to be an aversion to even talk about it. It's almost like, gosh, I don't want to talk about, where I'm going to be buried, or I don't want to talk about life insurance because I'm not going to really die, or something, it seems to be that similar type of feeling that firms have. Look, you know what? I don't want to talk about it. So where do they start?
Well, I think one of the things that I love about the ALA community that we both love so much is that oftentimes the people who are calling me and saying, we've got to get this figured out, are the executive business leaders. They are the ALA members. They're not afraid to talk about it. The lawyers are afraid to talk about it. And afraid to talk about it is, there's a lot of pieces and parts that go along with that. It hasn't been normalized. It's the last time they talked about it, something bad happened because someone said something they shouldn't have said, because they don't know how to go through what is, for a lot of people, a really challenging conversation. This sounds, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, I just kind of play one in my real life job, but all of a sudden you're faced with your own morbidity, right? You're talking about you're talking about the backside of your career. You're talking about the backside of your life. I remember I was in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I don't know how many years ago. This was probably like 12, 14 years ago. And I was meeting with a firm and we were talking about succession planning. And there was a lawyer there who was well into his 70s. And I said, tell me more about what your hesitation on planning for your retirement, whatever that looks like, is. And he said, Debbie, I've been married for 52 years. My wife regularly says to me, married for life, but not for lunch. And I thought that was hilarious. Like, they're married, she's willing to be married, but he's not allowed to be in the house at lunchtime. Like, you go do your thing. Like, this is my spot. That's your spot, right? And I thought that was so funny. But at the same time, you start to connect dots and you think about, you're facing a drastic change to your life. And many of these lawyers actually still love what they do, right? So they still love coming to work. They love interacting with their clients.
Well, and it's who they are, right? It's
right.
It's who they are. No different than you and I. But within that law firm box and within that lawyer box, that's who they are. They're a lawyer.
Yeah.
They want to be talking to clients. They want to be doing that every single day. And there's also that little competition thing, right? Well, those are my clients. I brought them in. I've known them for 25 years. They only trust me. And these new people that are here, even though they've been there for 15 years, I'm just not sure that they're going to be able to service them the way I do.
Yeah. Well, and the 800-pound gorilla in the room is also, if I have to start turning those clients over to younger lawyers, it affects my compensation.
Yes.
And I'm not ready for that yet. And so there are some firms, there are a handful of firms that I know about that have figured out how to normalize compensation during those years. So lawyers are incentivized to pass along their clients, and it doesn't impact them as severely financially as it would under the current comp model. Again, it's all connected, right? And so for me, it's and I do this a lot with our firms that we're working with that want to talk about succession. It's like, what would it take for everyone in this room to be comfortable talking loosely about your plans for the future? And that means for you to say something like what I might say, which I actually just said in a room with my partners 2 days ago. I'm 58. I'm probably going to work for 10 more years. I can't imagine ever completely not working, but I feel like I'm all in for 10 years. And if a ceiling tile falls and hits me on the head, Stacy knows all of these things. Cindy knows all of these things. And I don't know that I have the best contingency plan, but I have thought about it. Right.
And so, and you've talked about it.
So why can't we just say that? And it doesn't have to mean that somebody's going to grab their hourglass and say, okay, so 68, I got the clock running, right? It doesn't have to mean that. It can just mean that, like, okay, I'll give you another quick example. I was just working with a firm who has what I would call a ridiculously unreasonable buy in and buy out. Like, they just made a mistake at the beginning. That mistake has carried through. They're now in this situation where they have some number of equity partners who are all around the same age. And they're facing this thing where, what if they all retired at the same time? We can't afford to buy them out. And on the other side of the table is a group of 40-something-year-old lawyers who know that they can just go across the street and hang their own shingle, and they don't have to pay for the next 10 years to buy all of those people out. They have created this really risky situation. And so the first thing that I did with them is I said, look, I interviewed all of these equity partners one-on-one. And the young ones are like, we are terrified that this firm cannot afford, if all these people retire at the same time, to buy them out according to our buyout clause. Fast forward, here's what we did for them. We literally put those big white pieces of paper up on the wall, and we said 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028. And we went all the way out to like 2040. And we said, grab a marker, put your initials somewhere in the vicinity of when you think you might start to slow down. Turns out, number one, they weren't all retiring at the same time. And the sigh of relief that was breathed in that room was really refreshing. But number two, it got them talking about, is that really, like, should we start figuring out how to slowly pay out on that capital contribution now, instead of waiting and figuring out, like, what would that look like? And they have since revamped their entire partnership agreement to make it so those 40-something-year-old lawyers are like, I'm all in. This makes perfect sense, right?
And there's
so lots of things connected.
And it is connected, right? I mean, when we were doing our work together for succession planning, same type situation. It doesn't necessarily have to come from only what those earnings are that are coming in the door to use for payout. Transfer the risk.
Yeah.
Transfer the risk and buy insurance policies that pay out for that. There's a way to do that, and it's intricate, but it works.
Yeah.
And there's a whole nother risk, and there's a whole nother gains and that can come from that. And it takes that big weight off their shoulders because that's a big deal. Oh, well, how do we fund for it?
Yeah.
This has just been such a fascinating conversation. We always say that, we have 22 minutes, and, we could go forever. And,
forever.
just on the stories. And that's really where it's just such a great thing to hear that, look, these are actual stories that really do happen. These are what people really do talk about. So I think the solution that we've come to here is normalizing the talking points, normalizing the talking of a solution, and there's many, but normalizing it.
Just like nothing wrong with talking about the future. Ask early, ask often. Like, let's just make it part of what we do every year when we get together. How's everybody feeling? What do your future plans look like? Just make it normal. It's just what we do here.
Love it. Debbie, thank you for joining us. And before we wrap this, tell everyone how they can reach out to Affinity Consulting Group to do this great work that you guys do. How do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. Just search Debbie Foster Affinity. You'll find me. AffinityConsulting.com is our website, and all of my contact information is in my LinkedIn profile. And I would love to hear from you, even if you just want to, pick my brain about succession planning or strategic planning topics.
That's awesome. And as your grandson says,
lemonade.
Lemonade. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll catch you on the next episode of The Stand.